The question with Patrick Mahomes is not, do I bench him? The question is, do I cut him? This is a quarterback that has not hit 20 points in a single game this entire year. Week 1, 16. Week 2, 14. Week 3, 17. Week 4, 14. Week 5, 14. Week 7, 14. If we are going to go through and look at quarterbacks that have been averaging more points per game than Patrick Mahomes so far this season, you have Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, Dak, Caleb, Darnold, Kyler, Purdy, Goff, Geno, Flacco, Fields, Hurts, Burrow, Allen, Daniels, Love, Baker, and Lamar. Patrick Mahomes has been an absolute train wreck. We go through and we look at his current wide receiver room. You have Sky Moore going out and playing over 30 snaps this week. Rashee Rice is out for the year. We're not getting Hollywood back. And now Juju Smith-Schuster is injured as well. You have Xavier Worthy doing everything he can as a 21-year-old rookie, getting 8 targets, obviously, not really doing anything at all with it. And going into the future, it's hard to say, oh yeah, no, the Chiefs know they have to throw the ball more. The Chiefs know that they're going to have to actually bump up the passing attempts for Mahomes, and Mahomes going to have to start going out there and dropping back 40, 50 times a game. No, the Chiefs are 6-0. The Chiefs don't have to do any of that. So with Mahomes, it's impossible to rank him as a starting quarterback going into the future. It freaking sucks. I have moved him behind the quarterbacks that are weekly streamers based off matchup. I have moved him behind Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, and Kirk Cousins in our rest of season rankings over there on flockfantasy.com. Obviously, I expect Mahomes to have some more rushing yards than these guys, but they should just be lapping them when it comes to passing yards and passing touchdowns. Now, the next guy I want to talk about will be Deontay Johnson. With Deontay, you had a complete collapse this week in what I believed was a phenomenal matchup against Washington. Washington obviously has had a weak defense so far this season. The game here had an over-under of 50.5 points. I mean, it should have been a really high scoring. Now, the Panthers offense just implodes similar to what it did back against the Bears in week 5. And we actually have Canales coming out and saying, yep, Andy Dalton's still going to be our starting quarterback, which is probably good because obviously the alternative with Bryce Young, you had 3 points and 4 points for Deontay Johnson in weeks 1 and 2. The issue with Deontay is not only did the overall offense collapse, but also his volume did as well, where Deontay Johnson actually falls down 2-3 targets. So, I mean, this is kind of the issue that you have with the receivers that are in bad offenses, is that the floor is just going to be incredibly low. I thought that Deontay Johnson would be raising his floor given the target volume that he had that month of games with Andy Dalton. He was sitting here averaging about 10 targets per contest. But now that is dropping down. Going into the future, it's hard to view Deontay Johnson as that low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. Still probably somebody that you are starting most weeks in your flex spot or with the expectations that he is a low-end wide receiver 2. The receivers that I have him ranked alongside rest of season are Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, as well as Amari Cooper. I know it seems like wide receiver 26 is very low. There are just so many wide receivers that you need to rank, and they are very good. Now, I want to talk about Devonta Smith. I played Smith in the Flock League this week. One of the very many reasons why I took an L this week is brutal. But with Smith, it's not super predictive going into the future what we had. While yes, he finishes with -2 receiving yards. While yes, A.J. Brown gets there. While yes, Jalen Hurts has himself a day. The ultimate issue that you had in Philly, and this wasn't an issue if you're an Eagles fan, it's just an issue if you started Devonta Smith like I did, is we had 14 Jalen Hurts pass attempts in comparison to 45 rushing attempts for this team. This is what we have seen with the Baltimore Ravens throughout this year as well, right? Where some of these teams, if they get out to a large lead early on, they're going to be completely fine just running the ball down your throat, and they are going to stop passing it, and the volume is going to go away. And honestly, I didn't think that was going to be the case with the Philadelphia Eagles. I didn't know there was a world in which we could see 45 rushing attempts and 10 completions in a single game. So I am actually moving Devonta Smith down my rankings just a bit. I moved him down to wide receiver 21 alongside DK Metcalf, Brian Thomas, and Jaden Reed. Now, I will say, especially in the flock league, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex spots, full PPR, I'm still starting Smith every single week. But honestly, if you're like in a 10-team league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I think that you could skew away from him because similar to Baltimore, like I said, it does seem like if this team can, they want to run the ball over and over and over again. And honestly, with that in mind, for this Baltimore game tonight, I'm actually going to be looking at the Lamar Jackson for fewer than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Love Lamar. Think he can have 2 touchdowns, but I think that one of those comes on the ground. And of course, if you want to detail us on that, you can find the link in the description as well as the comment section. If you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, you're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you're going to be getting a free Kyler Murray pick for tonight's game, more than less than half a total yard. And you're going to be getting a free team review, which we are doing in the live streams every single day. Now, let's go over to Jaden Reed. And with Reed, I don't necessarily have to move him down my rankings that much. It seems like people were generally higher on him than I was. And the reason I was a little bit lower on Reed is just because the target volume hadn't been there. Now, while yes, he was giving you some monstrous performances with limited volume. Week 1, 33 fantasy points off of 6 targets. Insane. We go to week 4, 27 fantasy points off of 8 targets. Even weeks 5 and 6, you only have 6 targets in each game. However, he's going out there and averaging over 14 points per game in those. Looking at what Jaden Reed's done so far this year, Jaden Reed's currently sitting at wide receiver 11, 12, 13, right around that range in points per game in a full PPR format. He has been very strong, but the underlying issue that I've had with Reed is just the dispersion of targets that you have in this Green Bay Packers offense. Now, obviously, in games where maybe you have no Christian Watson, you have no Romeo Doubs, then there, yes, we can see a more comfortable projection for the target share that you should expect from Reed here in Green Bay. But when we're looking at this Packers offense, rolling out Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, and getting Tucker Kraft involved heavily as well, even if this is a great passing offense, Jaden Reed just not commanding enough target volume to be that consistent option that you were starting every single week. As your wide receiver 1, I think more so he's alongside Devonta Smith. If you're looking at my rest of season ranks, I am in the same range as Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Brian Thomas Jr. Obviously, we have Jaden Reed behind these players, and we are going to wait for the DK Metcalf injury update. Maybe Metcalf falls. We'll see. But if we're going into the future, I think that Reed is still somebody that I'd start, especially in like a 12-team, 2 wide receiver double flex format. But if you're in that 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, could be a potential spot to just package him with another option to get to an elite level player that will give you that consistency. Now, another guy that we have here is Rhamondre Stevenson. I started Rhamondre Stevenson this week, felt horrendous. Our Sunday just got off to such a bad start right away. Rhamondre in this game gives you 7 carries and 3 targets. Now, the reason why we didn't like Rhamondre Stevenson coming into the contest is, 1, the New England Patriots offense has projected out every single week to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And 2, he was in a running back by committee with Antonio Gibson. Now, with these 2 red flags for Rhamondre Stevenson, one of them's gotten worse and the other one's gotten a little bit better. The one that's gotten better is I actually would expect that sportsbooks are going to give credit to the New England Patriots offense going into the future. Now that it looks like they have some life, it looks like that they have some hope here with Drake May. Now, of course, it was a very easy matchup going up against a soft Jags defense, but still, nonetheless, I think Drake May is more exciting than Jacoby Brissett rest of season, and that could elevate everyone in this offense. But the drawback to that is Rhamondre Stevenson is now not looking as if he is in a split backfield with Antonio Gibson. He is looking as if he is in a 3-man running back by committee with Gibson and JaMychal Hasty, where Hasty had absolutely everything as a receiver here this week. I have moved Rhamondre Stevenson down my rankings. We didn't have to move him down much. He was, I believe, at running back 31 before the game. I'm moving him down to RB 34 at this point. Still is somebody that, the only way that you would ever start him is if you were just extremely desperate or if you were playing in a really deep format. Now, I do want to reiterate here with Rhamondre, I'm not cutting him. I still view him probably as the starter here in New England, but it doesn't matter if you're the starter, the second. If they're splitting it three ways, he's not startable until we see something change here. I mean, yeah, it seems like a long, long time ago when we had the 21 points and 17 points to open up the season. Now, we're just going through my entire starting lineup at this point. Somebody else I freaking started Anthony Richardson this week. I have no idea why. I have no idea how. The most embarrassing thing ever. I thought they were going to bench the dude at halftime, where Anthony Richardson at the half just simply could not move the ball down the field. Like, I was surprised that they didn't decide to go over to Joe Flacco. He was in my lineup, and I was kind of hoping they pivoted over to Joe Flacco. With A-Rich, you're looking at a quarterback that came out and he has given you 129 passing yards this week. Going back to the last full game that we saw him start, you get 167 passing yards. While we want to be super excited and say, oh yeah, obviously he's a bad NFL quarterback, but for fantasy football purposes, you still get the rushing upside. He's not running the ball that much. While this week, yes, he does with the 14 rush attempts. You go back through the first 3 weeks of the season, which is what we had from a fully healthy Anthony Richardson. Here we had 6 rushing attempts, 4 rushing attempts, and 8 rushing attempts. So I don't know. It seems like everybody bought into a quarterback having rushing upside that flashed a little bit, that was young, potentially, could pop. And we all bought into the wrong guy in Anthony Richardson rather than pushing up Jaden Daniels as the true elite guy. Clearly, Daniels is everything plus more that anybody ever wanted Anthony Richardson to be. I'm debating myself dropping Anthony Richardson and just rolling with streaming options. I have him currently QB 16 in our rest of season ranks, but I also think you have to be concerned at some point if Richardson continues to play like this, do they pivot over to Flacco? And Flacco may be the only thing that could save Josh Downs here. I actually have Josh Downs all the way down at wide receiver 46 in my rest of season rankings. Before the game, I think we had him at about wide receiver 41. Obviously, all these rankings are over on flockfantasy.com. Over there on the site, you can link your team for free. Check out a bunch of cool power standings. You can check out the free trade finder. You can check out the free waiver wire options. You can check out the free average consensus expert rankings. Find all that on flockfantasy.com, but we're updating our rankings there every day. And Josh Downs is my wide receiver 46 because similar to what we have with Rhamondre Stevenson, I would rather rank Josh Downs too low than too high. Like, the thing with Downs is there's just no path for you to go through and put this guy in your starting lineup outside of a quarterback change here, pivoting from Anthony Richardson over to Joe Flacco. While Downs gives you the very solid stretch of 22, 15, and 19 fantasy points in the 3 games with Flacco, in the 2 games with Richardson, we have seen 5 fantasy points and 1 point. So I really have no interest in Josh Downs. I don't think you drop him just yet. I think you hope that you end up getting swapped to Flacco. And I want to be on record. It's not that I think like 100%, yes, the Colts are better with Flacco under center. I think definitely for the long term, you have to get Anthony Richardson reps here. But it's just that there's going to be more passing volume in the offense, similar to what's happening in Pittsburgh, right? You transition from Justin Fields, the quarterback's going to monopolize a lot of the points on the ground. That's what Anthony Richardson's doing now. Any of the points that are going to be scored in Indy, Anthony Richardson may just steal them with his rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. Now, Tank Dell is somebody else that comes out and he actually gives you the goose egg. Josh Downs, you almost had it. Tank Dell actually gives it to you. Dell has been one of the worst picks in fantasy this year. Praise the heavens I did not draft this dude. He ate 9 targets the week prior against New England. Obviously, looked very exciting in the game with no Nico Collins, expanded target share. Season high in targets, season high in receptions. Hell, his underdog pick'em was up at 67.5 total yards. We did cash on that going with the lower, but nonetheless, going into the future, I think that with Dell, I'm not going to be like saying, oh, you have to drop him. Oh, he's falling down to the Josh Downs range. Because for me personally, I do think that I am more confident projecting out what you should expect specifically with CJ Stroud than I would be with Anthony Richardson. So I don't want to sit here and act like this is the easiest spot in the world for a Tank Dell bounce back. But CJ Stroud just gave absolutely no passing volume whatsoever in this offense this week. And I definitely think that could change for the better in the future. Now, somebody else that I started this week, and I know it's just embarrassing. Sam LaPorta. There is no way Sam LaPorta can be a top 10 tight end in fantasy. Obviously, we had him as a sell-high candidate coming off the game with the long receiving touchdown against Dallas. But here, we get another game with one reception. Let's go through just the amount of receptions LaPorta's had this season. 4, 2, 2, 4, 1, 1. The volume's completely gone. It's not like Jared Goff's not throwing the ball at all. The passing volume there, LaPorta's playing a ton of snaps. LaPorta's running a lot of routes. I just don't reasonably know what changed from last year. Now, I'll be the first person to admit to y'all. Y'all know I'm an idiot. But I view this going, oh, okay, LaPorta puts up the best rookie tight end season of all time. Going into year 2, he has the same exact role. It's one of the best offenses in the NFL. He's not injured to our knowledge. Nothing has changed in this, literally nothing at all. The literal only thing that is different here in Detroit this year in comparison to what we had last is they run the ball a little bit more and Sam LaPorta is a ghost. But yeah, I mean, I picked up Cole Kmet off the waiver wire. I'm going to be going with Cole Kmet over LaPorta this week. And then going over to Travis Kelce, I'd moved Kelce up to tight end 1 after the Rashee Rice injury. But after another stinker from Kelce, where we only have 2 games with over 10 fantasy points at this point, and the passing volume is just gone from Kansas City, I think it's hard to justify having Kelce over the guys that are the elite options week in and week out. Players like George Kittle, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. So we have rearranged the tight ends that we are ranking at the very top. I moved Kittle to 1 with the injury that you have to Ayuk. And McBride at 2, right ahead of Bowers, because I think McBride's in a better offense. But obviously, if you want to put Bowers at 2, or hell, even Bowers at 1, you do you. Ultimately, I'm still starting Kelce every single week. I just think that you lower expectations with him. But I really hope you didn't have too many players in this video. I know that I have a lot, and I'm going to be sitting here probably crying myself to sleep tonight. But maybe we can get some redemption with the Lamar Jackson fewer than 1.5 passing touchdowns tonight on Underdog Fantasy. If you want to tell us on that, you can find the link in the description and comment section. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you're going to be getting a free Kyler Murray pick in tonight's game, more than less than half a total yard, and a free team review in the live stream that we're doing every single night. But really hope I was able to help you out, and really hope I get to see you out with the stream before the game.